Hi there, this is lesson 3, page 2. My name is Michael with Patriarchal Psaltophiles, and we are teaching from Psaltic Method, which you can download for free at patriarchalpsaltophiles.org. And this is page 2. On page 1, if you remember, we talked a little bit about the scale. And lesson 2 talked a little bit about chronos και πάλιν chronos, and what chronos means. One beat is one thesis and the next arsis. This time we're going to talk a little bit about symbols. So now we're getting into the heart of Byzantine music. You know a little bit about scales, you know a little bit about the names of the phthongi, and now we're going to talk about the actual characters or symbols that people have been using for centuries to write down on paper Byzantine music. Last time I said if you want to chant the 4 times, someone could write down the phthongos the 4 times. Or if you wanted to say the, ga, vu, ga, the, someone could actually write down the names of the phthongi. So you know to go from the to ga to vu to ga to the. Now we're going to use symbols to do that. I'm not going to be writing the name of the note the anymore. I'm going to use symbols. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to give you the starting point, the phthongos, let's say the, and then with a symbol from the starting point, I'm going to tell you if you need to stay on the same note, go up, or go down. So if I give you the starting point and I tell you go 1 note up, you know that if the starting point is the, you go to ge. If I give you the starting point as the and I tell you go 1 note down, from the you go to ga. Okay, and these are the symbols that show you how to go up and down. The starting point is denoted by something called the martyria. 1 martyria, many martyries, martyries. 1 martyria, many martyries. Sometimes in parentheses, I give the word and the genedivus of that, which is the declension that means I martyria of the martyria, I martyria tis martyrias, but many martyrias. Okay, so the important thing you need to remember from the martyria is that it has 2 parts, the top and the bottom. The top part is always going to be the note. For example, in this case, delta for the. If you notice, none of these phthongi start with the same letter. So when you see gamma, like here gamma, you know that it's always going to be ga. When you see delta, you know that it's always going to be the. That's the top part of the martyria. The bottom part, we're going to talk a little bit more about the bottom part of the martyria, or what some people call the root or the rhiza of the martyria. The root of the martyria, the bottom part of the martyria, tells you how to go above or below that specific note in terms of what kind of intervals come above or below that specific note. In other words, when you see this kind of symbol below the, you know that you are on the, and the next interval or tone above is going to be a 7. And the immediate below tone is going to be a whole tone. And you know that because you see this symbol below the. Same thing with vu. You know that you are on note vu because of the letter vita. So that shows you the actual name of the note. But you also note that because the bottom part of the martyria is exactly the same as the, is exactly the same as zo, If you go one above vu, you are going to use a 7 or kind of a half tone. If you go one above the, you're always going to have a 7. If you go one above zo, you're going to have a 7. And if you go one below zo, you're going to have a note, a whole note, one below the whole, one below vu whole. Okay, so that's what the martyria means, and the martyria is meant to give you the starting point. So if I wanted you to start on the, I would show you this martyria right here. What if I wanted to say chant the 4 times? I gave you a starting point, so now I have to find a way to tell you to repeat that starting point 4 times. We are going to do that with ison. So ison is a character that basically tells you stay on the same note. So whatever note was previously, you just repeat it. You don't go up, you don't go down, you stay on the same note. Actually, ison in Greek means level or the same. So you stay on the same note. If I wanted you to go one note up, I would use this symbol, which is called the oligon. Oligon in Greek means a little bit, and a little bit up, just one note up. Okay, so oligon goes one note up. One note up from where? From the previous note. If you are just starting now, you have this martyria that is telling you you are starting from the. So if you are starting from the and you see this symbol right here, the ison, you say the. If you start from vu and you see ison, you say vu. If you start from the and you see the oligon, which goes one note up, you are on the, you see the oligon, you go one note up and you go to ke. And there is something else called the apostrophos. The apostrophos, which looks kind of like the apostrophe in English, goes one note down. So if you start on the and you see an apostrophos, you go down to ga. If you are already on ga and you see another apostrophos, you go one down to vu. And when you are on vu and you see an ison, you stay on vu. And when you see vu and then one oligon, you go up to ga. And then another oligon is going to bring you up to the. And that's where you started. Okay, so that's how we use symbols to denote what note to chant. In other words, you need a combination of two things. You need a starting point, which is going to be provided to you by the martyria, and then you are going to use one of these 3 characters, ison, oligon, or apostrophos, to tell you where to go from that starting point. Ison, oligon, and apostrophos, since they tell you by how much or how many notes or phthongi to go up or down, they are called characters of quantity. So we have one category of symbols, one category of characters in Byzantine music. We call them characteres posoditos, or quantity characters, or characters of quantity, that they tell you by how many notes to go up or down. And those are the 3 most common Byzantine music quantity characters, or characteres posoditos. Next time, we are going to use those characteres posoditos to chant exactly the same exercises that we did before with the, and so on. We are going to use symbols instead of actually writing the notes down. Okay, thank you so much, and I will see you next time.